Okay, good morning. Just to continue the Sichos we started yesterday. So we said that an Eved, even though the highest level of Shlichus, still shouldn't come by says Mamashik Mishaleach, Mishaleach and the Shtir for the one person, the Eved doesn't need to move a vatal to the other because Malachat whatever he, like it says, the Bechusha B'Kinyonei, the property and possession is the master, and basically the Eved has no Metzias for himself. So we're only now Dalit. Therefore, is verstandig, as wenn man halt beim Emes Bittul Tzalikus, is es nicht kein Stille zu take a Vagbo. Now, when we're holding at a true level of Bittul Tal Hashem, this is not a contradiction to having a stance of taikiv and akba, of strength and self-esteem. Also, is need a taikiv akba for zayin mitzias, nor the taikiv akba for nelikus, because when a person, this individual, he's not about himself. It's not about his own ego or his own self-esteem. We're speaking about this strength and this high self-esteem stemming from elikus, from galias. And this is what like Chazal say regarding a servant. The expression is Eved Melech, servant of a king is a king. What does that mean? The fact that when we say the servant of a king is a king, this doesn't generate like this feeling of now that he has like a gaiva, that he's like the level of Eved, a king. Well, thus is need shivas regardless, because this is not his importance and greatness. Nor dam melech. Rather, it's the importance and greatness is all about the king. And therefore, in the vert, they said that I'm going from Mitinaim Behar Alein. Now, for this reason, we call this Parshas Behar. So we asked yesterday, why not called Behar either Sinai or Behar Sinai? The mountain shows on Gaiva Yeshus. While the Shleimus from Bittul is as Zaydek Ahar, the says, and the state with that take of Agba, that been guarded by Varden, as thus is durch Ois, a take of Tugdusha. Or nit can Egen Yeshus Kasper Shalom. Is as they feel bottled to Malikuz, as me is me currently tilking Kasakadaitov of Zaymetzius. We made that dafür nit sagen befehlisch, as is Ahar, was kommt, weil is an Alefim von Sinai. Now, why do we call it Parshas Behar? Because when a person, as the completion of the bittul is that when he is at the level of Har, which means that he's standing with he's standing in an upright strength and self-assurance. So there's no need to clarify that it's entirely the power of Hashem and not his ego, God forbid. The person is bottled to Hashem to the extent that there's no grounds for even like to have even a suppose, like you should even think that he is concerned with his own Matthias. So therefore it's not necessary to emphasize that the mountain is solely a result of being entirely permeated with the feeling of Sinai, because he's so bottle. So there's no kasakadaitek that I would think that it comes from Sinai. Hey. Und das ist echt der Bier, bei der Ruchli ist von die Kamme Ifanim, wie kämen Metar sein Har Sinai. And this is also the explanation regarding the different ways we refer to Har Sinai in Aveda. Betchilas Aveda, man is am Metzias der Atzmen, darf sein Sinai allein. Es kann nicht sein, kein Ehe von Har Hagba, nor mehr nicht wie Bittul allein. At the beginning of one's Aveda, where one is his own identity, is a Messias, so he cannot be Har Sinai. In other words, he can't be a har, he has to be Sinai. There's no place with the slightest trace of feeling like a mountain or lifting himself up. Only bittul. But as a mitzvah la'atzmai, is noch nit shaykh to the avodah that take a magbad kedusha. Since this person at the stage that he is now, he's his own identity, his own mitzvahs. So he's not shaykh to the avodah of to have this self-esteem from kedusha. It's not appropriate. By him wird das sein teikiv v'agbo for sein yeshus. Why? Is that would only represent the strength and self-esteem of his own ego. We have to be very careful with this because many times people, it can be misconstrued. It can be misrepresented. A person saying it's not about me, it's about the covet of this person, the covet of Teda. But the person who has yeshus, he cannot go into he's not shy to have the take of Agbad Kedusha. It's all about his own yeshus. The erste even for Shlichus. This is like what we brought from Levi's of Engel, the first level of Shlichus. Der Shliach is a Metzias La'atzmi Nar, is a Gervatel, and Tut Apul B'makim from the Mishalech. So the Shliach he's an independent entity, and yet he nullifies himself and acts on behalf of the Mishalech, or the principal. So that's the first level. The first level is that he has to be a Sinai, he has to be a Batal. Why? Because he still has Yeshus, and it's inappropriate for him to have the Hagabah V'Yisnasas because it's not going to be in a way of Kedusha, it's going to be in a way of ego. And the Rebbe says, Hechreifin is Har Sinai. And you have a higher level in Aveda that refers to the level of Har Sinai. Adam Eivet can shen haben a gefil from Har Hagba. This person can have a feel for mountain and Hagba. While our house shein by a bittel pnimi, bis as the teikiv is nit zainer nor fnelikus. So then he comes to the level of Har Sinai. He may already feel like a mountain and have a high self-esteem. Since he has developed inner bittel, so this strength he expresses is not his own, it stems from Elikus. Nevertheless, since, yes, this person, he has a person who has the Aveda, since he's holding out a bittul primi, so it's not about him. It comes from Elikus, so he can have the idea of Har. Nevertheless, he still has to be cautioned with the idea of Sinai. Was verhitim as soll nicht reinfallen in Yeshus, prevents him from slipping into ego. Other bittul hat noch nicht durchgenommen kommen zu Yosef. Why? Because the bittul did not permeate his existence entirely. Halb the Dage was filled noch wie zum Vatel zum Ebersten. He still feels that he's nullifying himself before Hashem. Durch die hechere Efanim in Shlichus, as geht über sein Keach HaMaise zum Mishalech bis as das wird verrechen wie Maise Mishalech. Und nach der Shliach Gufa wird der Mishalech. This parallels the higher idea of Shlichus that the Shliach transforms his power to act to the Mishalech, and the actions he performs is considered as the Mishalech, or even the Shliach is entirely identified with the Mishalech. Avobikein, es ist alt and al Eifin was min can uptail the Mishalech from the Mishalech. Nevertheless, even if you have the highest levels, the distinction can be made between the Shliach and the Mishalech. The Hechstoifin is, what's the highest level, is Behar Alim. This is the mountain itself. The Bittul Mishlemos biz as Medarfit del Monin Bavarnin as is Sinai. This person, his Bittul is so complete that he does not need the word of Sinai's caution. Since he is identified with Hashem to the extent that there's basically no room for even a thought that anything other than a likus exists. Vav. Afal P. As the Indian from Behar is Gor Ahoiche Dagen Bittel, even though this level of Behar represents an exceptionally lofty level of Bittel, nevertheless, it's a hero for every single Jew in his Aveda. Ba'amidas Indian is Yid Ahar, because every single Jew, in essence, is a mountain. Kol Yisrael Malachim, as the Gemara says, all the Yidden are described as kings. Them in Mod von Yidden, as soll haben Starkheit, haben a Starkheit, a Hien von Yiddishkeit. When we demand every single Yid has to have this strongness for Yiddishkeit, meint es nicht als min verbeut kas verschon even bittel, als es nicht kein andere Brüder wie zu verhitten im Funra. The kavanah is not that he should sacrifice his bittel because there's no other way to protect himself from evil. The starkheit gufa is bepnimius to take him a kiss. Rather, the inner dimension of the strength he has is the power of the godly soul, which is an actual part of Hashem from above. Ayidar Vissen, as the Neshama von Ayidin hatten in Golus nit vertrieben und Shibin Machis nit übergegeben. Or was es ist negiert zu, trade mitzvah, when having so, haben Ayidin auf sich nit kein der Zager. A Yid has to realize that his soul was never driven into Golus and not even subjugated by the Goyim. With regard to everything involving Torah, its mitzvahs, and the minhagim, no nation can oppose its views on us. Dina the machusa dina, on out is gonna begay katan. Yes, we know that the halacha is that the law of authority is the law, and we are warned to not provoke even the insignificant goy. Aber wenn es kommt zu einer Linie von Jiddischkeit, is a Eved Melech is Adrab. Nicht nur was hat der Teken von einem Melech, nur noch mehr. Targor nicht Meichel sein, al Kvede. Was es nicht sein kann, nur es ist Kvede am Melech. Für Melech machen wir Kodesh Baruch Hu. Welche sagt, was schachati bis Seichom, nafshe likus, welche ist Chelik Alikam, mamish Chelik Menetzem. So, a Yid has to know when it comes to Yiddishkeit, every Yid is a servant of a king, and therefore he is the king. So, not only does he have the power of a king, he also is not allowed to forgo his own honor. For the honor is not, he's not allowed to be meichlet. And in the honor of the king, the King of Kings, which the Eibishter says about the Eibishter, I will dwell within them, within basically the nefesh of the kiss, which is actually, like the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, an actual part of God from above, which is a part of his essence. Zayin, al pigo alal that min oich verstehen dem kesher from Behar Bechukosai. Now, based on all what we explained, we can appreciate now the connection between Behar and Bechukosai. It's weit neues in Aveda, was wird aris gebracht, and die nemen Behar, tegen wees nassus, Bechukosai bittel. Ja, look, we steer zei lazu, no adrama. En het komt altijd iets af van de tweede. So, we asked at the beginning that Behar and Sinai are contradictions. Why? Because Behar shows on a mountain, it shows on Gaiva, and the Chukosai shows on Bittel. So, the Rebbe says that there's no contradiction between these two names. Not only does Behar, which we said shows on strength and high self-esteem, are not contrary to the Chukosai, but rather one is a result of the other. Die Vigret früher, also teken wie es nasses welcher wird gemeint mit Behar, als ich so von Bittel mit ist, als da Bittel was los gar nicht kein Ort, öfter als gedeitig bei für Acher, als man hat viele kein Sabin nicht da, als der Erwe des Messias Adon. Now, as we explained, this strength and this self-esteem applied by a heart is a teitzah, is an outgrowth of the true bittul. He has such a bittul that there's no even, we said no even because from the outset there's no doubt that this Eved, the servant, is an extension of identify with the master. This bittul werd areis gebracht in Bechukosai, in the Kiyam mitzvahs and Eifung von Chokim. This bittul is expressed through Bechukosai, observing mitzvahs in a manner of Chokim. Although is mevar as Bechukosai is Eich von Lashon Chakika, which means Eis gekritzt. Der Auftu von Eisis and Chakika maar steht in dem, was niet beloy zijn de Eisis vereenigt mit der Zach, welche sie seinen ausgekritzt, was die Meile ist voran euch bei Eisis Aksibe, welche seinen zugebundene Zach zum Klav, nur als die Eisis seinen Gorkin mit Zies nicht für sich. Der ganze Metzies ist nur die Zach, in welche sie seinen ausgekritzt. He says in this concept also applies with regards to written letters. So I'm sorry, let me say, the Alter Rebbe says Bechukosai shares the same root as the letter of Chakika, engraving. Now, engraving, this indicates a very deep connection, because when you engrave letters, it becomes one with the entity into which they are engraved. Now, this concept also applies to written letters. Now, nevertheless, there's a distinction that can be made between the two. Why? Because letters on parchment, which they are written, are really not one, because the letters are added to the parchment. Engraved letters are not a distinct entity on their own. Their existence is one with the entity in which they are engraved. For example, like we said, this is this, but was the ganze Metzias von dem Eis Aleph, von the Luchas haben is given, is given the Evan for the Luchas. We said the stone on the tablets, we said that it constitutes the entire existence of the Aleph engraved above them. But das is the diak in the Namen Chokim. I feel we got big Gzeres. It was a Gzere meant as it came from Mitzvahs Vert Keton mit Kfir. That's what we call. What do we call? We don't say that these mitzvahs are called Gzeres. We call it Chokim. Because Gzeres would mean you're doing something. Just I'm strong arming you, forcing you to do something, but you don't want to do it. And that's a rechen and tana ma'isa was not tam. He has to break his nature to perform an act. He doesn't have a reason. Chukah, however, when we say chukah, what's this for lashon? What's this for lashon chakika vice? As is nitakin shum kfiyah by kiyam. When we say the lashon chukim, which comes from the meaning of engrave, this indicates that one is not compelled to perform the mitzvahs. Instead, the Adam is bottled b'tachlis meibrit, and this person is so nullified before Hashem. On his nit king, it says that maybe he's chugas in an Evan tape, or maybe toter al tzvasa, as is the mratzanalian. So, because this person is so nullified to Hashem, so it's like he's considered like the letters that have been engraved into this precious stone. So as a result of that, one carries out what Hashem wants without having to make a choice, because he's mamish, like he has this idea of engraving as bittul to Hashem. This is also what Chazal say in regards to Chokim. You have no license to raise questions about it. What does it mean? The Chazal should say quickly, do not question, do not raise questions about it. Remember the explanation is, is madrish as bechlal dafin zayin amahar, zayin mit aber nachdem nasa darf zayin in v'nishma v'noven. Mit darf willen for verstehen time and mitzvahs, choli, nor in dem Inyan, in the Chodeshus, du hast Seichel, und du darfst es nutzen. Aber in dem Sog, mitzvahs, hat mehr dir nicht gegeben Reshus lahar achera. Now, when you say that you have no basically reshus to raise questions about it, applies that generally a person should raise questions and try to contemplate answers. When we're saying that because we know we do nasa, but it has to also be a vinishma. It has to also be in a way of understanding. A person has to seek to understand the svaras and the seichel of mitzvahs. However, this person, we say that with regards to this mitzvahs, he was not given over here reshus to raise questions about them. Oich in them is mishel nor lahar. And over here also, all we're doing, we're negating only the kind of thought described as here a question. Kiyem achokim darf nid zayin an leifin was a shel in a sechel is ben this adrishu hashayla. Now, chokim does not need to be observed in a manner that entirely negates intellectual contemplation, research, or adarabah. If it medrash razal biurim v'chokim zayin nid tzilei hasechel v'kam mehem zayin epach hasechel. As we find that the chokim are not in the intellectual commandment, and some chokim really defy logic. Nor afal pi kain darfin to mention poilin of zayin seichel arzol nit mahar zayin loshin mahar achar rabbi ashchine etrachtin as thus is a concern of chokim begavim mitzvahs seichlis. So what does he have to do? This person has to train his seichel that he should shape his thinking process so he doesn't raise questions about that it's a chesron in the chukim. He should not think any less of these mitzvahs in regards to the things that can be comprehended. On the contrary, chukim is from Lashon Chakika. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll stop. We'll finish this here tomorrow. So, Adrabah was for say chukim is from Lashon Chakika, and the bittul some everything hat yid. The Greich asks us by him in Eifem Chakika, there's not kein Zach Oyser Elikos. The Eisen Chakika was an Atel von Evan Atev. It is the Mitzvahs all of that Sechel Midas came still nicht zu sein Bittel, but das ist eine Gare Ois eigene Mitzvahs. Nor the Mitzvahs von Elikos. On the contrary, since Chukah reflects engraving, it implies that a person's Bittel before Hashem has progressed to the point that he's engraved within him. For him, there's nothing else outside godliness like engraved letters, which are part of the precious stones. The individual's personality, his thoughts and feelings are not a contradiction to Bittul. He has transcended his individual identity entirely and has identified himself completely with Hashem. Ches. Der Mitwert min euch verstehen die Scheichos von dem Teichen der Vasada, wenn es Schar Mitzvahs Va'ichin zum Shema Seder Bechukosai. Now we can understand the connection between the overall content of the Torah's reading, which speaks of a reward and punishment of the mitzvahs, and the name Bechukosai. Its wonders. The Inyan for Chokim Bepashtas is, Asmin is Zemekayim Blois Derfar, was is an Tziva Kadosh Baruch Hu. The reason why we perform the Chokim is because it's a commandment of Hashem. Choshman Veis Nit Zer Tam, and Zerkim, even though we do not know the reason at all. The past that I know the Asal Reva Sedra, the Yudam of Sarmutzes, Leib so ancient if Heather Kiyumum, was the Aziris of Kimavitzes Masadim Skar was there on the Makom. So, how is it that we're speaking about Chukim and that we're also speaking about the idea of when you do a mitzvah, you also got a reward for it, which has to do with Seichel. So in that, what's the explanation? Shasa Yid is bottled to Mebershtan Eifel von Chakika. When a person is so bottled to Hashem in a manner of engraving, as is Nidaki Zach Eishalikus, there's nothing else besides Hashem. With the Aces Chakiko was on a tail from the Mevanate, like the Aces Chakiko. That is if the Skar Mitzvah is an Alephim from Chakiko. So the reward of the Mitzvahs is also in the way of Chakiko. Thus was the Mitzvahs bring mit sich Skar. The fact that the Mitzvahs lead to reward, schadet by mention I feel from Tana Mitzvah to leave sich und sein Skar B'Teil. He's not doing this because he should gain something. As Erev Haben Tev Gashma V'Rokei. Nor by him the head blazed and Tev, because it's just by him he has the appreciation of Hashem. Rather Abrish is Takas HaTev. Since Hashem is the ultimate good, breaks on the mitzvahs Gutzkeit and as alt bis Tev Gashma Kshurti. It says mitzvahs lead to goodness in all things, including material well-being and prosperity in a simple and straightforward sense.